For the sake of the sect, I confined myself for 500 years. But now, upon my return, everything has changed. My master despises me. The senior sisters loathe me. The new junior brother has replaced everything I once had. However, through an illusion, I saw what happened 10,000 years later. From then on, I tore up the sect contract and defected. I transformed into a rogue cultivator, seeking my own path. But just as I was triumphantly fighting my way to the heavenly path, my former master and senior sisters were crying, begging me to return to the sect. To this, my only response was, "Your beloved junior brother died 500 years ago. That was your choice." The name Yangshao City comes from an ancient poem. Now a guest of rivers and seas, one day a man of 10,000 miles of clouds. This is a city of rogue cultivators, but it is not as the name suggests, built on top of the clouds. On the contrary, this city is built in a valley, a heavily guarded city, surrounded by towering black cliffs that reach the clouds. The force of restriction and Tao charm permeates the surroundings. From the outside, this city exudes a sinister and terrifying aura. If not for the name Yangshao City, many seeing this city for the first time would even suspect that this place should be called Yama's Hall. Most of the residents of Yangshao City are rogue cultivators, among whom inevitably are some who have betrayed their sects or clans and are being hunted down. As long as they are rogue cultivators and follow the rules, they can receive protection from the city lord and the cultivators within the city. Of course, Yangshao City is also the most heavily guarded. Flying is prohibited within the city. Using cultivation is prohibited, at least not where it can be detected. Additionally, there are no teleportation arrays within the city. To enter the city, one must pass through the city gate. A curfew is also enforced. While the convoy waited to enter the city, Surume began explaining the city's rules to Guzu. But as she spoke, she suddenly stopped mid-sentence because she noticed that Gushu's gaze had a moment of complexity when looking at Yangshao City. However, before Surume could ask further, Guzu had already regained his composure. The complex emotions in his eyes vanished, replaced by a calmness that seemed unchanging, like the wind, passing by without sorrow or joy. "Let's go," Guzu said. Then he actually stepped down from the carriage voluntarily, stood with his hands behind his back, and walked forward, heading towards the city. Surume was startled, quickly speaking, "Taoist Feng, wait! This is Yangshao City. If it's your first time here, you need an introduction to enter. Otherwise, you'll trigger the city's restrictions." But before she could finish, she saw that Guzu had already stepped lightly and walked into Yangshao City. At this, Surume was stunned. Guzu just walked in like that, without triggering the restrictions. No! Not even the basic. Even the basic restriction checks did not appear. Yangshao City is highly regarded by rogue cultivators, not just because of its city lord, but the main reason is the extremely powerful restriction arrays of Yangshao City. Ordinary people entering for the first time need to obtain an entry token at the city gate. Only after successfully obtaining it can they enter smoothly. Attempting to force entry would trigger the city's grand array, resulting in death. Even with an entry token, one must still go through a restriction check to enter the city. Just now, Surume took a few steps and was immediately blocked by an invisible barrier. She had to wait until the jade token hanging at her waist heated up slightly before the invisible restriction disappeared. It was nothing like how easily Guzu entered. Unless the shadow nearby also had the same thought as Surume. It is rumored that the restriction array of Yangshao City exempts a few individuals considered eternal friends of the city. These individuals can bypass the restriction checks. Could it be that Feng Bugui is one of them? Who exactly is he? While Surume and the shadow were wildly speculating about Gushu's identity, far away at King Xuan Holy, Land's Kimming Peak. Someone was staring blankly at a jade token. Second senior sister, what are you doing? I can't believe someone like you would be daydreaming. Junior sister Lu Qingyao approached, tilting her head curiously and asked, what is this? Second senior sister Wei Qi Chunli snapped out of it and smiled. This is an entry token for Yangshao City. Yangshao City, the city of rogue cultivators? Lu Qingyao thought for a moment. Second senior sister, have you been there? Yes, I have. When? About 500 years ago? I went there with Guzu. Wei Qi Chunli replied honestly. But the mention of Guzu immediately turned Lu Qingyao's playful smile into a look of disgust. Second senior sister, you weren't thinking about Guzu, were you? Indeed, I was thinking about him. Wei Qi Chunli scratched her head and nodded. Lu Qingyao pouted. What's there to think about such a person? A worthless fool and a deeply scheming, hateful person. Such a person. Even mentioning him dirties my mouth. Little junior sister, you misunderstand. Wei Qi Chunli shook her head and smiled. I was thinking about Guzu. Not because I miss him. Then why? I was wondering if he really took the Sect's fortune with him. The Sect's fortune again? Lu Qingyao frowned. Senior sister, you don't believe in that fortune nonsense, do you? Isn't that just a bunch of nonsense? Only senior sister truly believes it in the whole sect. Why do you believe it too? Little junior sister, you don't understand. Wei Qi Chunli shook her head. Lu Qingyao was dissatisfied and was about to speak when Wei Qi Chunli said, the talk about fortune may not be provable, but the concept of heavenly fortune is not baseless. I actually think fortune might really exist. Think about it. In these 500 years, our sect has faced numerous crises, and each time we've turned misfortune into fortune, and several times, it was purely due to luck. Tell me, how could it be so coincidental? That's because our sect is united, with us sisters and our master working together, creating invincible strength, Lu Qingyao said. Wei Qi Chunli asked, there must be a reason for it. Then how do you explain the breaking of junior brother's dragon roar sword? Well, Lu Qingyao didn't know how to argue with that. After all, second senior sister is a grandmother of refining. She certainly knows more than I do. But she couldn't help saying, but master says that the concept of fortune is a fallacy. She is a supreme grandmother. She couldn't be wrong, right? It's true that master is a supreme grandmother. And whether the concept of fortune is true or not, have you ever considered? What if the concept of fortune is true? What if our King Xuan Holy Land's fortune was really taken by Guzu? He wouldn't dare. Lu Qingyao gritted her teeth, her face full of hatred. If he really dared to do that, I would tear out his tendons, flay his skin, and lock his soul in a dog's body, making him live as a dog for life. Wei Qi Chunli laughed. That won't do. Second senior sister, you wouldn't be defending Guzu, would you? Lu Qingyao said, dissatisfied. Not at all. Wei Qi Chunli shook her head. I just think, if we must do it, it's better to use another animal. After all, I quite like eating dog meat, and I don't want my image of dogs to be tainted by Guzu. Haha! Lu Qingyao couldn't help but laugh. Second senior sister, master always says you're too blunt. I didn't expect you to be able to make a joke. Of course, I can't always be scolded by master. Wei Qi Chunli smiled warmly. Lu Qingyao patted her chest. Second senior sister, now I feel relieved. I thought you were like senior sister, bewitched by that insidious Guzu, and couldn't forget him. How could that be? Wei Qi Chunli shook her head without hesitation. She looked at the Yangshao City entry token in her hand. Then without any hesitation, she crushed it and threw it into the forging furnace. He is not worthy. What I was thinking about just now was something else. What were you thinking about, second senior sister? Lu Qingyao asked curiously. Wei Qi Chunli looked at the flames in the furnace, made even more intense by the spiritual energy from the crushed token. her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. I was thinking about how I could kill Guzu. These four words left her mouth. Even Lu Qingyao was stunned. Then instinctively, she reached out and covered Wei Qi Chunli's mouth. Second senior sister, how dare you say such a thing? If anyone else heard that, it would be a disaster for our Qingchuan holy land. Even if I think the same as you, we can't actually say it out loud. She was a bit frightened. As the youngest junior sister, all the senior sisters doted on her, and their master was reluctant to scold her. This made her someone who could say and do anything without fear within the sect. But even she wouldn't dare to say such a thing openly. Indeed, second senior sister is still the same, always straightforward and unable to hide anything. Don't worry, now let go. But you mustn't say such things again. I have placed a restriction here. No one else can hear us, so it's alright to say it. Really? Of course it's true. Seeing Wei Qi Chunli's confident response, and noticing the restriction actually appearing around them, Lu Qingyao finally let go of her second senior sister. But her eyes began to burn with passion. I always thought you were my favorite senior sister, second senior sister. Now I see. I wasn't wrong to like you. I'll tell you a secret. I think exactly the same as you. I've wanted to kill Guzu for a long time. If it weren't for his luck, he would have died already. They say bad people live long lives. Someone like him is a disaster that will last for 1,000 years. As Lu Qingyao said this, she was full of indignation, thinking that Guzu not being dead was the greatest regret in the world. A year ago, she had tried to use her beast-taming skills to make it seem like a spirit beast had gone out of control, intending for Guzu to be killed by the beast. Unfortunately, she failed in the end. No one discovered it at the time, but Master Guan Zulin saw through it. She didn't speak of it publicly, but took her back and gave her a severe scolding. Since then, she didn't dare to easily speak of wanting to kill Guzu. However, to Lu Qingyao's surprise, she thought she had found a kindred spirit. But Wei Qi Chunli shook her head without hesitation. I'm not like you. What's different? Lu Qingyao asked, puzzled. Wei Qi Chunli replied, I'm doing it for the sect. To forge weapons for junior brother. For the sect. To forge weapons for junior brother. So you want to kill Guzu? Lu Qingyao found it strange. Not quite understanding. Could it be, senior sister, you plan to turn Guzu into a weapon for junior brother? What are you thinking? Wei Qi Chunli rolled her eyes. Even if we talk about using one's body to forge weapons, unless it's voluntary, it won't be strong. Besides, with Gushu's cultivation wasted, his meridians and bones all damaged, even if we did forge him into a weapon, it would be more of a hindrance. Lu Qingyao nodded instinctively. That seemed to make sense. I was thinking about what senior sister said about fortune. Wei Qi Chunli provided the answer. Lu Qingyao didn't understand, but she heard Wei Qi Chunli say, regardless of whether what senior sister said is true or false, or whether the fortune exists, since the 7 yin evil thunder has appeared, it indicates that there is definitely a problem. If it's true that Guzu took the fortune away, causing all this, then tell me, if we kill Guzu, will the fortune return? This made Lu Qingyao suddenly enlightened. Yes. Whether the fortune is real or fake, as long as Guzu dies, won't the fortune return? Exactly. That damn Guzu. We don't even know where he is now. Otherwise, we could really try. Lu Qingyao said regretfully. She was talking about trying to kill Guzu and see if the fortune exists, and if it will really return. There would be no harm in losing just Gushu's life. No loss at all. But as soon as she said this, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck down from the sky. In the next second, Lu Qingyao spat out a mouthful of blood. Junior sister. What's wrong? Wei Qi Chunli was startled, hurriedly supporting her. She saw Lu Qingyao shaking her head, getting up in a panic, and quickly flying towards her spirit beast peak. There she saw her meticulously raised stone, shattering lion, lying on its back, legs up in the air, completely black, lying on the ground, with black smoke slowly rising. This scene made Lu Qingyao's eyes widen in anger, her heart feeling as if it were being cut by knives. While Lu Qingyao was grieving over her stone-shattering lion being struck dead by lightning. In Yangshao City, in the south part of the city, in a small courtyard at Listening Rain residence, Guzu was sitting cross-legged in the training room. In front of him was a large pile of cultivation manuals. These were personally delivered by Mo Xingsheng. After Guzu arrived in Yangshao City, Mo Xingsheng was indeed a very ambitious person. Upon discovering that Gushu's true strength was even more terrifying than he had imagined, especially after seeing Surume of Wanbao Pavilion doing everything she could to befriend him, he had been trying various ways to win Gushu's favor. His intentions were impure. His motives were not genuine. However, for Guzu, it didn't matter, because these cultivation manuals, although not high in grade, were abundant in quantity. At this moment, he was still in his Danshan Sea of Che, meticulously transcribing each and every one of these manuals. This seemed like a very tedious process, but in fact, only Guzu himself knew that this process was almost like attaining enlightenment, because every time he transcribed a manual, Guzu felt a sense of understanding, even deepening his comprehension of the Tao. This feeling was indescribable, but if he had to describe it, perhaps it was like a very difficult problem suddenly becoming clear. Moreover, Guzu experienced this sudden clarity continuously. His speed was very fast. 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, nearly 100 different low-quality manuals were all transcribed into the unnamed ancient book. Then, one by one, they began to merge, as Gushu's internal cultivation method continued to evolve. Finally, when the last manual was completely understood, a surge of insight immediately appeared. The method, already at the peak of the profound level, suddenly burst with golden light. In the next moment, the method fusion was completed. A brand new method called Mystical Tao Technique appeared in Gushu's Danshan's Sea of Che, beside the unnamed ancient book. This was a method of earth level. Almost at the moment of comprehending this earth level method, Guzu could clearly feel that his speed of absorbing and converting spiritual energy from heaven and earth had increased more than tenfold. Guzu didn't hesitate. Grabbing the spirit stone beside him, a strong suction force appeared instantly. The spirit stone, which would have taken a considerable time to exhaust, turned to spirit stone powder in Gushu's hand in an instant. With the spiritual energy accumulated in his body for a long time, after fully absorbing the energy from this spirit stone, Gushu's cultivation level broke through once again, reaching the 8th level of Che refining. It was just a small breakthrough in realm, but it still made Gushu's eyes shine brightly with a bit of surprise. The unnamed ancient book could indeed fuse cultivation methods, and the method he was cultivating could indeed keep improving. Guzu suddenly felt a lot of anticipation. If his cultivation method could ascend from earth level to heaven level, and even further to the highest level, what kind of method would that be? The future looked promising, while Guzu was advancing in his cultivation. On the other side, Nian Xiaoo, still lingering in the Tianqi Mountains, was anxiously looking at Yi Hongling, who had used the Show Russian secret technique. Yi Hongling's eyebrows were slightly twitching. Show Russian is one of Tianqi Mansion's defensive secret techniques. It can draw on the power of the surrounding mountains and rivers for defense. Attacking someone protected by this technique is like attacking the mountains and rivers themselves. It is said that highly skilled practitioners of Tianqi Mansion can even draw on the power of an entire continent to resist. This technique is extremely powerful, but it has flaws. The biggest problem is that once this technique is used, it borrows the power of the mountains and rivers for defense, but the user also becomes part of the mountains and rivers, just like Yi Hongling at this moment. Unable to move, unable to speak, she won't be harmed. But without rescue, she would be eternally suppressed here, until her life force completely dissipates. This is a move used only as a last resort, an extremely dangerous secret technique that should never be used lightly. Even a golden core cultivator burning their life force to use this move could not break it, not even Lu Dongshan at the peak of the nascent soul stage. Fortunately, Nyan Kaoxi's strength was strong enough. With her meticulous and careful technique, Yi Hongling gradually began to separate from the state of Shou Russian. Finally, when the last bit of spiritual energy was infused into Yi Hongling, the female general, who had been motionless and merged with the mountain contours, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her aura instantly weakened to the extreme. She was already severely injured and near death, saved by her comrades' use of Shou Russian. But it was only to keep her barely alive. Fortunately, Nyan Chao was prepared. She immediately fed Yi Hongling a pill. Another pill was immediately fed into Yi Hongling's mouth, followed by a large amount of spiritual energy being infused into her body, helping her recover. At that moment, Nyan Kaoxi's eyes were filled with anxiety. She had only one purpose for doing this, for Gu Xiu. Gu Xiu was dead. Both the divination and what Lu Dongshan said indicated that Gu Xiu was already dead. Nyan Chao didn't believe it. Someone like junior brother Gu could not die so easily. He had great fortune. Even if he really died, it wouldn't be so quietly. This was her belief in the concept of fortune, but this belief left her uncertain. She could only pin her hopes on Yi Hongling. Although Yi Hongling couldn't speak and couldn't move, she might still have been aware of her surroundings. Nyan Chao hoped to get the truth from her. Wake up! With Nyan Kaoxi's help, Yi Hongling's condition began to improve. And under her calls, Yi Hongling finally opened her eyes again. She immediately got up and bowed. Yi Hongling of Tiasi Mansion pays respects to the senior. Thank you for saving me, senior. Yi Hongling? Nyan Chao nodded and immediately asked, tell me, when you were trapped here, could you perceive your surroundings? No! Yi Hongling shook her head. When I was sealed into Shou Russian, I was already near death. Before being sealed, I couldn't perceive anything outside. Really? Absolutely. Yi Hongling quickly answered, unable to resist asking, may I know your name, senior, so I can repay your kindness someday? But regarding her talk of repaying the favor, Nyan Chao had no interest at all. Her brow already furrowed. Yi Hongling's condition was indeed bad, and her lack of external perception didn't seem like a lie. So what should she do next? Could it be that junior brother is really dead? Senior? Yi Hongling's inquiry brought Nyan Chao back to her senses. She immediately asked again, have you ever seen a white-haired cultivator? A white-haired cultivator? Yi Hongling was stunned for a moment, immediately thinking of Gu Xiu, senior. Are you referring to the rogue cultivator at the 3rd level of refining who wielded a wooden stick and had an aura as steady as a mountain? Wielded a wooden stick? A rogue cultivator at the 3rd level of refining? Nyan Kaoxi's heart skipped a beat. Tell me more. That Taoist friend also saved my life. We first met because of a Volf demon. Yi Hongling found it strange, but the person before her had saved her life and had unfathomable cultivation, so she honestly recounted everything from her encounter with Gu Xiu to meeting him again when she was in danger, and then parting ways. However, as she listened, Nyan Chao couldn't help but feel disappointed. She had held onto a sliver of hope, because this woman had faint traces of junior brother's aura. But now it seemed it was just because they had traveled together. That Taoist friend was extremely powerful, although he was only at the 3rd level of terrifying. When I first met him, he faced the Wolf demon without the slightest fear, making me feel he was extraordinary. Later, while hiding in the cave, that Taoist friend's strength was truly astonishing, defeating enemies of higher levels with ease, like drinking water effortlessly. Yi Hongling was unaware of 9 Kaoxi's disappointment, and as she spoke of Guzu, she couldn't help but marvel. Her eyes were filled with shock. Nine Xiao couldn't help but straighten her back. What she was talking about was her junior brother Gu. She felt proud. It made sense. 500 years ago, before Guzu entered the Forbidden's area, he was as dazzling as a meteor, always eliciting awe and admiration wherever he went. Now, starting his cultivation anew, it was normal to amaze a small foundation establishment cultivator. It's just a pity that, although I saw the strength of that Taoist friend at the time, I didn't heed his advice. Otherwise, my 3 senior brothers wouldn't have. Yi Hongling felt a bit sad. Back then, Guzu had said that the Scarlet Flame Raven would be used by enemies, but no one took it seriously. The result was that all 3 senior brothers died in battle. If it weren't for the Golden Core senior brother, who used his life to perform show Russian, I would have long been a ghost too. Can you tell me more about him? Nyan Chao asked. Her emotions were also low. She felt extreme guilt inside. Now, all leads were cut off. It seemed Guzu might really be dead, which filled her with extreme regret. She just hated herself for not arriving sooner. Tell me more. Yi Hongling found it strange. To be honest, I don't know much about that Taoist friend. You spent many days together, right? Didn't you learn anything in those days? Nyan Chao asked. Yi Hongling was a bit puzzled. That Taoist friend rarely spoke. We were either traveling or hiding and cultivating, so we didn't talk much. Rarely spoke? Nyan Chao was stunned, thinking, how could that be? Guzu was never a quiet person. Every time he was with me, he talked a lot. Even now. Nyan Chao still remembered. 500 years ago, every time Guzu returned from his travels, he would visit her at Wenshan Pavilion. They would spend the night together on the star-watching platform, watching the stars. He didn't just watch the stars. He also liked to tell her about the interesting things he encountered during his adventures. Sometimes, he could talk for 3 days and nights without stopping. How could someone who had so much to say suddenly become a person who rarely spoke? Yi Hongling continued. Yes, that Taoist friend rarely spoke, and from his demeanor, he seemed like the type who had long been accustomed to being alone. Nyan Chao wanted to refute this, but as soon as she opened her mouth, she felt a sudden pain in her heart. She thought of her impression of Guzu, which was more focused on the time before he entered the Forbidden's area 500 years ago. Back then, Guzu was loved by everyone in the sect. The master liked him. The senior sisters cared for him. Everyone was his confidant and friend. They were even like family to him. But in the 3 years since his return from the Forbidden's area, no one spoke to him, and he gradually changed from someone who loved to talk about everything and enjoyed chatting with every senior sister into someone who preferred silence, preferred peace, and preferred solitude. All of this was because of what he experienced after returning from the Forbidden's area. At this moment, Nyan Kaoxi's face was extremely pale. Yi Hongling was a bit worried. Senior, are you all right? I'm fine. Nyan Chao shook her head. Please continue. I want to hear more about him. Yi Hongling bit her lip. Although she didn't know Gushu's name and background, she also didn't know much about the terrifyingly powerful senior in front of her. But she understood that this person was connected to the benefactor from before. Realizing this, Yi Hongling was at a loss for words. After a moment of thought, she said, Senior, Perhaps it's better not to ask. Why? Nine Chao asked, puzzled. Yi Hongling hesitated. I'm afraid if I say too much, you might not be able to accept it. Nine Chao was stunned, then understood what Yi Hongling meant. Did he mention his past? No! Yi Hongling shook her head. But that Taoist friend once said something to me. What did he say? Nine Chao asked curiously. Yi Hongling took a deep breath. That Taoist friend once said, the world is heartless. Human relations are evil. The rain sends off the dusk, and flowers fall easily.